At least half a dozen companies, including 2 media outlets, have been hit by the same cyber attacks that caused the New Zealand Stock Exchange to stop trading last week. An attack again briefly crashed the NZX website today. May Heron has developments.
The websites of Radio New Zealand and Stuff are up and running, but both organisations have confirmed they were hit by cyber attackers. The government says it's happening all over the world.
It seems to be reasonably random. What is also apparent is once they find a vulnerability, they keep going back at it, which is what has happened to NZX.
RNZ says it was targeted more than once in what's called a denial of service attack.
What that means is that traffic is completely and utterly overwhelmed. So a perpetrator sends all this traffic towards a website or a network or a system.
The NZX kept trading today despite its website being down this morning, the 5th trading day in a row. It says these attacks are among the largest, well-resourced and sophisticated ever seen in New Zealand. It's now working with Spark and the GCSB, as well as cyber defence experts Akamai Technology.
And the nature of these attacks, which is every day, day after day, looks more like criminal activity as opposed to state-sponsored activity.
But finding who's responsible is difficult. Technology experts say these criminals are good at hiding and businesses need to look at their own security.
What you've got to think about with a denial of service attack is think of it like a highway. If you've built a 2-lane highway and you've got 4 lanes of traffic on it, you're in trouble.
Attackers look to create disruption. When they can't, they sort of pack up and go away. We want them to pack up and go away.
The Financial Markets Authority says it's working closely with NZX and trading information has not been breached. May Heron, One News.
Our spy agency is reviewing security concerns after revelations that the personal details of more than 700 Kiwis are being held on a mammoth Chinese database. There's been mixed reaction from New Zealanders who've discovered they're among more than 2 million foreigners being tracked by a Chinese intelligence company. Laura James reports.
Her life dealing with matters of retirement, not something she expected China to take an interest in.
I have to say I was a bit perplexed, but I do think it's quite funny.
But it's been revealed our Retirement Commissioner's personal details are on file in Shenzhen, southeastern China, and they're just a drop in the bucket.
The database has 2.4 million names.
More than 700 of which are Kiwis. The Prime Minister's parents, a former Olympian, Sir John Key's son, and the Chief of Defence among them.
The point of the data set is to identify politically prominent people in each society and their family members, and also on this list, serious criminals, gather information about them. Then the next step would be to target them.
The company behind it all, Xinhua Data.
Its parent body is a state-owned enterprise, which is part of the military-industrial complex in China.
Their surveillance operations coming to light after a leak to an American economics professor.
At the time, to be honest, I really did not realize what I was coming into possession.
And a warning.
That list, it will not be the complete list, because the data set is not complete.
Well, I'm not going to overreact to it, but other than to say we are aware of it and we are cognizant of it, and we will not accept an interference in our country of that kind if that is what its intention is.
Our spy agency says it's reviewing the information relating to New Zealand for any potential risks or concerns. It says at this stage it appears the data's been pulled from publicly accessible sources such as social media, suggesting it's a timely reminder for people to be aware of what they're sharing online.
And according to this expert, also a reminder, we need to change our policies and advice around dealing with China.
Well, tonight, One News can exclusively reveal chilling new details in the Chinese data leak. We've obtained the full list of people from across the Pacific Islands, including some who don't even have a presence on the internet, whose personal information has been targeted and now linked to China's military and intelligence networks. Barbara Drever with this exclusive report.
Grant O'Fee, once Tonga's police commissioner, led a major investigation into the illegal issuing of passports in the kingdom. 6 years ago, we revealed how dozens of diplomatic and ordinary passports were issued to Chinese nationals, one couple receiving 22 between them. Now retired, Grant O'Fee is not on the Tongan list, but 2 family members are. One has never been to Tonga.
It certainly doesn't worry me, but it is a bit worrying for some of my family, that they're not used to that sort of thing.
One News can reveal how many people's details have been harvested from each Pacific nation by Chinese tech firm Zhenhua Data. 804 individuals are listed, many from bigger countries like Fiji and Papua New Guinea. But even tiny islands like Niue have also been targeted. But it's who's in the database that's raising concern.
There's a family with several politicians, but they're not on the list, but their nephews and nieces and relatives are. Their networks of intelligence and people on the ground, even in very small islands, is really sophisticated. So you do have to know that so-and-so is connected to so-and-so.
All New Zealand's realm countries are included. Even isolated Tokelau, which only has 1,600 residents and no air service, have 6 people listed.
I don't think it's random.
You're not going to be able to scrape a lot of information out of the internet in Tokelau, for example, on individual people. It's all about the relationships, but you need to know who's important and who's related to who, if you wanted to potentially co-opt them, to persuade them of a particular policy.
Fiji's database consists of big business people, senior military and several criminals, and many people linked to key figures. Prime Minister Vorenke Bainimarama's nephew is on it, and it's a pattern repeated throughout the Pacific.
It's going to change the dynamics in a significant way as leaders begin to realize that family members and close friends are being watched and part of the list as well. So the way they will approach China will be quite different now, and China too will have to quickly respond to that.
China's influence has been growing in the Pacific, but now clear questions are emerging as to what those interests are.
Well, I bet you for a lot less money than our submarines and in a hell of a shorter time there, Stephen. Not as sophisticated, I'm sure, but a matter of months they built a warship.
Look, their production capacity has really ramped up over the last few years. They've made it quite clear that they're not hiding it. They're publicly stating they intend to build a very capable navy so that they can pursue their claims that have been completely rejected by the international courts into subjugating the South China Sea.
Prue, all of this retaliatory language from the ambassador, sending a very clear signal, don't buy Australian wine, don't buy their beef, all of these things, just because we want to get to the bottom of how this coronavirus spread the world over. Surely, if China's got nothing to hide, it shouldn't mind an inquiry.
Well, of course, but we know it does have a lot to hide. I mean, this is a big test for the government. We're being really overtly threatened. They've been doing a lot of covert stuff, as we know, and it's time now. I think the chickens, or should I say the chicken chow min's coming home to roost. We need to wake up to ourselves and diversify so that we're not relying on China, and maybe we call its bluff. We don't import, from them. We don't allow the universities to be controlled by them. They've infiltrated our political system, and they're a threat to our assets. They actually own half of Australia and a lot of the key assets. So I think we call their bluff if we have to, but we need to get smart and diversify our economic trading partners.